Can you hear all that? There's a motherload of wood ducks back in here. I came back in here and started scouting this swamp for deer. The rut's coming on in about 10 days. And I found some good rubs and scrapes leading back into this swampy area back here in the woods. And as I started walking in, I heard a bunch of noise. I didn't know if I'd busted deer out into the marsh or not, but turns out these oaks in here are raining acorns in this flooded timber. And there's just a huge flock of wood ducks back in here. You know, scouting's every bit as important for ducks as it is for deer. And this might be an off the beaten spot, away from the crowds. When the second split opens here in November in a couple weeks, maybe I'll keep an eye on it and get back in here with Michael. Maybe do some duck hunting after we get done with the run. I'm gonna sneak over there and see if I can see him. Right, I got a little too close and jumped them, but not before I heard mallards back in here. That's unusual to have mallards down here in this area this early in the fall. So I found out what's going on over here after flushing my walk over. Beaver has made a dam along a little creek running off the main swamp. And this could be a gold mine when the season opens, because I'm betting there won't be a lot of guys back in here gunning this small water, and it's holding a lot of birds and there's a lot of food. So I got a little bonus on this scout. I found a good duck hunting spot. I think I might get back in here with Michael and try that. Our duck season comes in on the November 16th this year, so it'll be pretty much, the rut will be winded down, and hopefully I will have taken a good buck. And from the looks of this, I've got a good shot at it. After I snuck across that little beaver dam, I got back in here and I was fine. It looks like the deer is coming from those acorns. I didn't find any rubs back to the east of here. Now heading west across the beaver dam, I continued to find a lot of good tracks in the mud. And when I got back in here, I found a really nice, strong rub line going right up the back of the marsh. Looks like he's slipping through the marsh, maybe feeding where all those acorns are, and then slipping through the marsh and heading to the west, back right along the edge of the swamp. Now, the rub line is really good because it's not just a series of rubs. They're on large trees, and you can tell by this one here that they've been used repetitively for at least several years. So this buck's not a little forkhorn. He's probably a pretty good buck. I've hunted back in this area in years past and seen a few good bucks. I guess it's just gonna have to be one of those deals where I'm gonna find a setup back in here, sneak in here across the marsh, see if I can't get a shot at him. Alright, so this is where I'm looking to set up, and I'll tell you my reasoning here is I followed that rub line down, and I had rubs on this side, that side, both sides of the trees, right down through this opening. And I could set up back in there, but as I followed the rub line in, I got to this location right here. I can see rubs back leading into this thicker brush here behind me, this thicket. The area right in here is really rubbed up well, and the rubs are facing, all of them on the trees coming out this way. They're on this side of the trees. So that tells me he's using this trail here to come out in the evenings. This is where he comes off bed heading out because he's rubbing. You can tell the way a deer's heading, the way he's standing when he rubs. Gives you an idea of his direction of travel, whether he's heading into the brush or out of the brush. This looks like a two-way travel route, but it looks like right here is where he's heading out of the brush and into the brush, and going back in here there's rubs, and right here, this tree, he's taking his frustration out on it. You can see the trail here, and he has literally broken this tree down. You can see he took his rack and had to go with this little tree, tore it in half, just letting his frustration out. So I may get out here in a couple of days. They're calling for a little rain. I'm going to pick a tree right here on the downwind side of this trail and see if I can't get back in here and get a shot at this deer one evening during the pre-rut. When his frustrations are at the peak, I may catch him a little less nocturnal, heading out of this trail to head up towards those acorns to see if any does are feeding there and check them to see if they're in heat yet. But this is a pretty much like, I'm always preaching about scouting, but scouting it's everything. Out here on these public lands, I don't use trail cameras because they just disappear before you come back to check them. But this is the type of spot where I would really think I might get a shot at the buck during the pre-rut. Once the rut starts, all bets are off. You're going to want to hunt where there's a concentration of does because that's where the bucks are going to tend to head to hang around the does. But last week of October, first week of November, before those does come and eat, and those bucks have all that pent-up frustration, a spot like this could be a gold mine. Another one. He stands about this tall, his head bent down like that, because that's where he's twisting, snapping off the tree at. This is a pretty big deer. That's almost up in my chest. And it was very recent too. These leaves have not dried enough to readily fall off the branch where he broke it. So this was done within a week or so probably. Oh, this just keeps getting better. This is about the freshest scrape you're ever going to see. It was just dug up. I doubt it was last night. It was probably this morning, maybe even just a few hours ago. But I can't wait to get back in here. There's some rubs on the trees over there. I was coming off that rub line where I set up down for this buck, and I found this huge scrape. I was going over here to check this little clearing. I shot a turkey back in here right off the roost a few seasons ago in this same spot. And I know there's a clearing with a bunch of oaks. I wanted to check it for sign, but as I crossed from the rub line, heading in that direction, I found this scrape, and man, I cannot wait to get back in here and hunt this. Yep. Okay, so as I followed the trail past where that chest-high tree was broken off, I got down in here, and it actually led right to this clearing where I shot that turkey back here in the swamp. This is the opening. The turkeys were roosted in these trees back in here when I came in that morning and got that jig. But this is a red oak drop, and they are actively dropping here. But the tracks look like they were mixed. Back in the other spot, I was only finding large tracks. As I came down the trail, I started seeing a mixture of tracks, large and small. That tells me this is more of a feeding destination. Now, you could set up here and hunt too, but you run the risk of having does come through. If you're looking for a doe, that's great, but you don't want to be hunting pre-rut where they're does because you could get busted and they could send off alarm snorts, bust through the woods. And knowing that bucks are largely nocturnal, I think the best bet would be hunting right on the edge of where I think he's bedding. Now up in here, maybe once the rut gets rolling real good, this would be a good place to set up and look for him to come through checking does. But I think pre-rut, you're better off right on the edge of the bedding cover. All right, I'm out. I'm a little worn out, but I'm glad I came though. Originally, I came up just to check a few spots that I'd already scouted. Make sure the signs still look good after the black powder season and deer hadn't been pushed out of the area. Not only did that look good, I also found a great spot that I can't wait to get back into and hunt during the rut, and a bunch of ducks too. So things are looking up. Rut's gonna kick off in a week. Right now, I gotta go get the gear ready. All right, putting the finishing touches on my gear there, getting it ready to hunt the whitetail rut. You know, every year before the hunting season opens in September, there's a whole process I use to prepare my hunting clothes and my gear, trying to eliminate as much human scent as possible. And I like to repeat that process right before the rut kicks off, because when you're hunting the early season, conditions can be warmer and you're bound to sweat and pick up a lot of odors. And I want to be as fresh as possible when the deer start rutting. I'm also going to be shooting my bow. If you're an archery hunter, it's always a good idea to continue practicing right through the season. Don't stop when the season opens. Keep practicing with your bow. That way you can ensure it's dialed in. Make sure you didn't knock your sight off hiking in or out from your stand at 0 dark 30. If you want to see our video on how we prepare our gear, it's called Preparing for Success. I'll put a link to it right here. And make sure you subscribe so you can see how we do during this year's whitetail rut.